What's going on, guys? Today we are going to be testing the key differences between the maximum weight and minimum weight builds using the 7.62 MDR, the Mutant, the AK-101, and the HK-416. We are aiming to find out what major differences there are and see which performs best in different scenarios, such as firing at range, CQB coming around corners, and shooting while walking. I will test each build and hopefully we can come to a solid conclusion. Before we get into the testing, personally, I think we will see what we already expect. Heavy builds working well at range and full auto, while lightweight works great in close quarter battles. But let's go ahead and hit the shooting range and find out. Alright, to start testing, we will go through all of the heavy builds first, get an idea of how they act, how they function, and how they move. We'll take some shots at range, check recoil and oversway. We will move forward, go around one of the targets and use that as our corner, coming off of it and firing, and then we will test walking and shooting as well. Let's see, we're going to go Mutant, MDR, HK, and then AK-101. So we'll start with the Mutant, firing at range at full auto. Easy enough to keep on target. Alright, so this is our corner we'll use. We'll come off of it and ADS and shoot. Ooh. There's definitely some heavy sway in the manipulation. As soon as you go to ADS, you're going to feel it. Staying on target in full auto doesn't seem to be an issue at all. That oversway is absurdly strong though. Alright, and now walking and shooting. Manageable. Next we'll test the MDR. Firing in full auto at range. Oof. That's the biggest noticeable difference so far is the oversway. When you first ADS that hard pull left, which I think is just when you shoulder your weapon, you go from your right rib cage area up to your shoulder. So you're pulling up and to the left as it is, so it's natural for a heavier gun to, especially towards the front of the barrel, to pull farther left ahead of you. All right, full auto at range. 7.62 MDR. Not the best. Not the worst. Now we'll test corner shooting. I expect the same outcome. It's going to be a little hard to ADS off the rip. Yeah, it's just got that extreme oversway, that heaviness to the gun. It just all shows out really well. Just hard to maintain on target. All right, now walking while shooting. A bit bouncy. A bit more bouncy than I would expect. Let's go ahead and swap to the next round of weapons. We're going to stick with the heavy build. We'll go to the HK and then the AK. All right, testing the HK-416, full auto at range, max weight. So for comparison purposes, before we break down too much, we are looking at 8.9 kilos fully loaded with 0 ergo on the Mutant. We are looking at 9.3 kilos fully loaded with 21 ergo on the MDR. And we are looking at 9.2 kilos with 0 ergo on the HK. And the AK-101 is 9.3 with 20 ergo. Just so you guys know what we're messing with here. Again, that oversway is pretty substantial. You can correct it, obviously, once you know that your scope's going to come in, jumping to the left and then back. It's going to go up and to the left and then come back in. You can kind of just hold where you want it to be. And then as long as you correct back to the left as it tries to sway right, you can keep it on target. Anyways, coming off a corner. Correcting is no big deal. The oversway, again, is your biggest problem. You get a pretty substantial vertical climb there, but nothing unmanageable. And now we'll do shooting while walking. Holds true, keep it on target, recoil's manageable. All right, full auto, heavy build. Oh, wow. Definitely a noticeable difference there. Coming off a corner. Again, we know that oversway is there, so as long as you know to correct, you're usually going to be in a good spot. The AK feels substantially cleaner overall, in my opinion, and it's one of the heavier builds as well. It's 9.3, 9.2, 9.317, 8. So the MDR and the AK-101 are both relatively close in weight, both being the heavier builds. And the AK-101, that's interesting. They both have higher ergo. The other two are 0 ergo weapons. So I guess what's the weirdest about that is the heaviest build has more ergo than the other, the other two. by a decent amount, but the weapon sway is, the oversway is still the same. That hard left and then up into the left and then down into the right is still exactly the same whether you have 0 ergo or high ergo. It seems like your weight plays a much more substantial role in the correction of the gun and the sway of the gun than your ergonomics do. So weight is definitely playing a pretty major part here. Okay, let's move to lightweight and then go from there. Okay, I can already tell the difference in a couple different ways. This is already just easier to manipulate, more responsive, much faster ADS speeds, which granted, that's scope versus reflex. That's something entirely different. That's another thing we'll break into. Granted, the ADS speed with the scope would still be similar in the pacing wise. Like, it would be faster, but it wouldn't be that much faster because you're still lining up your scope. But the responsiveness, your snappiness, it's just there. You're on target, you're ready. There is no oversway, as you can see here, which we already established with the previous video for lightweight builds. You're going to get a very clean, just crisp, quick ADS, which is what you want with something like this. You would expect a lighter build to be easier to manipulate. You know, you're not pulling some heavy barrel up and over, so you don't have that extreme correction to the left and then back down. So let's go ahead and go full auto. I don't know if we hit a single shot there, maybe 2. Let's test CQB situations coming around corners. Look at that. The barrel doesn't even get jammed up like the other ones do. This thing is just ready to go. Granted, my aiming is not going great right now, but coming off the corner, that snappiness you get, that quickness of the ADS speed being ready to go down at any moment. This is walking while shooting with the Mutant. Pretty bouncy, which you would expect. The gases coming out of your muzzle brake are going to force that barrel to bounce around a lot more with a lightweight build, which makes sense, considering the heavy builds are able to handle that gas coming out and not be affected nearly as much because of the weight, where the lightweight build is snappy, responsive, and quick to just, you know, be on point and precise. The gases coming out of the muzzle brake are able to effectively push the weapon up, down, left, right a lot easier. So it's a little more, it's a much more open, rounded off feeling with your recoil patterns. It's going to be more circular. It's going to bounce around a good bit more, especially at range. That's specifically testing at range, right? Okay, let's go 7.62 MDR, full auto at range. We've got a pretty substantial climb there, but again, like that, we're just quick and to the point with it. Let's go up to shooting around corners. Same situation. The barrel of the gun doesn't even try to fold. We're not pushing the gun left across our body here or anything. I am as close as I can get to this, and it's just ready to roll. With the lightweight build, it's definitely more about how well you aim, because coming off those corners, it is going to be ready to roll. All right, now walking and shooting with the 7.62 MDR lightweight. But yeah, you're going to get a much more robust recoil pattern there. Shooting at range with the MDR, walking and shooting with the MDR, or not even necessarily the MDR, but the lightweight builds in general. Just because they are lightweight, they are much more susceptible to the gases coming out of your muzzle brake, bouncing around, pushing it left, right, up, down, things like that, where with the heavy stuff it's not. Those gases almost mean nothing coming out of the heavy end. Let's go ahead and move on to the next 2 firearms in the lightweight section. We have the HK416 and the AK101. The thing with the AK101, which we will get to in just a second, is the barrel length, and that does matter a good bit. That's the other portion of what's causing issues with the lightweight builds currently, is going for the maximum, well, the minimum amount of weight. The light builds need to have the short barrels, and with the shorter barrels, you're going to get less accuracy at range. Let's go ahead and test that. Full auto at range. Again, bouncy, kind of all over the place. Had a more vertical pattern to it this time. Instead of bouncing around, it was just you know, climbing more so. It had some horizontal left and right to it, but for the most part, that felt much more like a vertical climb. Let's go up to corner shooting. I imagine the same situation is going to happen where the barrel is going to not go across body. Yeah, it's just going to stay where we want it, which in reality is pretty nice because you're able to just, that's where your leans are going to come in more handy because you don't get that barrel stuff. What's the terminology there? You're not going across your body with the barrel, right? Your barrel's not starting over here. As you come across the corner, you have to pull the gun out and away from it, and then you're able to get on target. Where with these, you can just... you know, kind of come off your wall, come off your corner, come around, whatever it is. You don't have anything impeding in your barrel's way. Nothing is going to block it and get in front of it to cause you problems. And now walking while shooting. Oh, reset the mag, sorry. All right, walking while shooting. That definitely had a more circular recoil pattern to it. That did not have the same vertical climb as just regularly shooting the gun would have. Okay, so here's an interesting one for us. The AK-101. Firing full auto at range. I think I'm going to eat my own words here. I am wrong. I expected with a longer barrel, it would be a much steadier recoil pattern, but this thing just went left and around and then to the right and then back down and then up and then over and made an X, a circle, and 3 tits. I don't understand what just happened there. I was genuinely expecting a different outcome. Let's go ahead and test coming around corners, CQB situations. This one does barrel stuff you, so you do go across body here. Again, we're going to run into the same situation, except for we're a little snappier with lightweight builds, so we're able to maintain and get on target faster. Biggest issue, again, is just the fact that when you're coming up close to a wall or coming around a corner, you're going to have a little bit of time to pull your barrel out and get back on target, right? No big deal, especially with the light builds. It's easy to do. You don't have that oversway, which was killing us with the heavy builds. We're able to just get right there, right? Again, with the lightweight builds, it's going to be more about your aim and less about correcting the oversway and making sure that when your first shots hit, they're accurate. So with this, it's just making sure you're on target when you ADS. Shooting while walking with the AK-101. A more manageable recoil pattern than previously, but still kind of all over the place. And I think that's because of the range difference there. Had we been that extra 20 feet back, the barrel would have been bouncing all around like it had before. But with this walking at medium range, you're able to keep it a little more on target. And I am doing as little as possible to manage the recoil. I'm not holding or anything like that. I am letting the guns flow and fire as they feel natural. So let's make a little finals versus semifinal situation here for the light build. So the HK genuinely surprised me, and I'm gonna put it against the AK-101 and see what my thoughts are against the two, heavy versus light, platform that I like versus platform that I like. So we have the HK up first, shooting at range, full auto. Again, that vertical recoil is kind of horrendous, but there's not a lot of horizontal there. It's manageable, and it's definitely more reasonable than I expected it to be when I first started this. Against the AK-101, heavy build, full auto at range. Which is astounding to me. I know that the heavier builds are going to have a better recoil pattern. I know that they're going to stay more tight grouping and more on target. But the AK-101 heavy build being the heaviest of them, it also has the higher ergo. So I guess it's not that surprising, but based off of the way everything else performed, including the MDR, which had a reasonably close, if not just a slightly higher ergo, I am a little bit surprised to see at range full auto recoil patterns being that tight. And that's without any recoil control. If we were to attempt to recoil control this one, I'd say a majority of our shots hit there. And we will attempt to recoil control this one. The heavy AK with recoil control, full auto at range. Shots are on target still. I feel like I messed up the recoil pattern. It almost felt like a cleaner recoil pattern without me trying to manage it, which is kind of surprising there too. But maybe that was just a bad correction on my part, thinking it was going to go more to the right and I went left. Who's to tell? So the HK at mid-range, coming off a wall or around a corner in a CQB situation. Okay, the fact that we don't have to come across body is just absolutely massive. We can just be there and ready every time. Now, with the heavy AK-101, which was true for both versions of the AK-101 so far, we do go crossbody, but we have that major correction in the oversway there. That's what keeps the heavy builds best at range and the light builds good at CQB. If by chance you were to build a heavy short barreled version of one of these guns, I would say that you would be in line with the HK functionality at walls and at corners without going across body, but still have the tighter recoil pattern of one of these, right? Functionality on target at close quarter battles, CQB ranges. The AK-101, as well as all the other heavy guns, work great. It's just that correction period of that first ADS. So, and we all know in a CQB situation, you're not going to have the opportunity to manage that very well. So a lot of times what you're going to end up doing is just coming out and just firing, right? So what we're going to end up doing a lot of the time is just hip firing. Which this thing feels fine, hip firing. The HK does as well, to be honest with you. Not as good. There's still a nice chunk of recoil. Again, just the short barrel, the weight of it all. There's a lot of variance going into play here. Shooting while walking with the AK-101. In full auto this time, please. Okay, shooting while walking with the AK-101, full auto. Completely manageable recoil pattern. It kind of goes diagonally up and left, diagonally down to the right, up and to the left, down and to the right. Just kind of sways back and forth in that same pattern. Pretty manageable, especially when you start to realize what the pattern is. It's controllable. And as you saw, that was while we were walking, so it might have just been a step-to-step situation. All right, HK-416, walking while shooting, full auto. And that thing is just instantly up and to the left and then over to the right. And I mean, sure, I was able to bring it back on target, but that is also at medium range, so it's not going to be entirely easy to manage. I would not suggest trying to fight people at range with something like this. But again, this is a short barrel, lightweight build, so it is expected to be extremely unmanageable in the recoil department at range. Where the heavy build, again, kind of what they're built for. Slow moving, easy to hold on point, keep on target, and keep moving forward. Let's see. Let's go heavy mutant and lightweight MDR. Full auto at range. MDR has a very distinct vertical pattern, right? Straight up, straight down, kind of in the middle there, you're hitting some shots. Mutant at range, full auto. Pretty decent when it comes to overall recoil pattern. Still not beautifully crafted there, right? Like, it's not built to be a recoil machine. It's not built to be an ergo machine. This is built purely on weight, just so we're noticing and seeing those major differences. That weapon sway is our big dividing factor there. That is so pronounced to the left and then down and to the right. But again, if we just manage the recoil even slightly, we keep a majority of our shots on target, and it's manageable. It's very manageable. It's easy enough. You just have to kind of pull down and to the right a little bit, I'd say. Okay, MDR coming off corners, same situation. You're not getting that crossbody barrel stuff, so you don't have to worry too much about it. You're gonna just come out and you can hip fire them. But it's still got a very defined vertical climb to it. It really wants to just jump up and go. Where the AK-101, once we're able to, it's somewhat manageable. It's still pretty distinct as well. It kind of wants to climb right and up, you know, or sorry, kind of wants to climb left and up, it seems, but it's manageable. Again, it's just figuring out what those guns do in those situations and learning how to interact with it and correct it. MDR, short barrel, shooting while walking. Sorry, lightweight, shooting while walking. And AK-101, side by side, shooting while walking. Completely manageable. I really like the heavy AK build. Or not the heavy AK build, the heavy mutant build. Okay, I still think the AK-101 heavy build is probably my favorite for the heavies. It performs really well. Granted, it is the heaviest one of them all, but it still remains having, or it still seems to have decent ergo, decent enough to be able to function, right? It's not zero, it's not completely unwieldy and just bouncing around everywhere. It is, if you're gonna go for a heavy build, I would suggest the AK-101, similar to this, just because you still get solid recoil control, completely manageable, and you're getting a firearm that functions well. You still have your crossbody, but I think you could get by with it. Obviously, this is an extreme case, right? This is the heaviest I could possibly build these guns. So you're probably going to be somewhere in the middle, right? I don't expect anyone to actually be building as heavy as possible and saying, let's take this in raid because it'll be a good time. All I'm trying to show are the extreme differences between the lightest of the light and the heaviest of the heaviest. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that. We've shown how extreme that oversway can be when you first ADS. We've shown how you get the crossbody barrel situation when you are in tighter CQB areas, which can be detrimental to you living or dying. And we've shown how walking and shooting is more manageable, and shooting at range in full auto is more manageable with a heavy weapon versus where lightweight, it has a lot more working against it to keep it on target. The benefits to the lightweight builds are the CQB situations, and I think that's about it, really. You have something that is very lightweight, very manageable, very easy to get around corners and turn and be on target with. And I think that they each have their qualities and their downfalls. And I think that there's a use case for each one, right? If I was going to shoreline, I'm probably going to take one of these heavier builds over like the Mutant or the HK lightweight build for two reasons. One, 90% of my shooting I'm doing is outdoors. It's going to be long range, and it's going to be more precision shooting. The few chances I would want the HK or a lightweight build on me on shoreline is if we're in resort. And that's just because of the amount of doorways and corners and stairs and different things that we have to clear out. So again, it kind of varies and comes down to build for what you need, build for where you're going. If I'm going to factory, I'm most likely not going to take a heavy AK with a long barrel and a suppressor with a massive scope. You know, I'm going to build specifically for going to factory. I'm going to build something that's ergo friendly, that's minimal on weight, and performs to the functions that I need. I need something that can be on target quickly, not a lot of oversway, not a lot of barrel sway at all. Accuracy matters less because I'm closer. So all in all, to sum everything up, I would say lightweight builds are great in CQB situations. They have minimal barrel sway, practically no oversway. They are responsive, snappy, quick and to the point, and they feel reasonably good to use in those CQB situations. Where the heavy stuff has extreme oversway, has a pretty substantial amount of barrel sway while just sitting ADS, is harder to manipulate around corners and stuff, but is going to excel at those long range situations. So knowing that, you're still probably going to build somewhere in the middle, right? These are the extreme sides of each one. If you were to build something around 5 kilos with 60 ergo, reasonable recoil, I think you're looking at a pretty good weapon for an all-around situation. But again, it boils down to building for what you need. So lightweight versus heavy. I like the lightweight stuff. I like the snappiness. I like responsiveness. I like it being quick and to the point. But the qualities the heavyweight have, I prefer, right? Like, you could throw away the oversway, get rid of the weapon sway, get rid of the cross body barrel, and just give me those beautiful recoil patterns, right? That's what we're after. So do with that what you will. I hope you guys gained some information from this. I hope this helps show you in some way, shape, or form the differences in heavy versus light. And we'll see you next week. See ya.